What if the way you look, the way your bones grew, even your jawline or posture was determined before you were born? In the modern world, beauty, strength, and health are often treated like luck. And I agree to some point. It's about luck. I've seen some people arguing this, saying it's not a genetic lottery, but it is. No one chose the parents they were born to, the nutrition they were fed as children, or even the environment they grew up in, and all that shaped you, how you look now. You don't have to believe in luck to be lucky. Also, no one is saying it's not about genetics. It's about genetics. We're built by DNA. DNA is like the instruction manual. It contains the genetic code that tells your body how to build proteins. Proteins are the building blocks. Your muscles, skin, enzymes, hormones, and even parts of your bones are made from protein. And cells read the DNA instructions and use them to make these proteins. So, while your physical body is made of cells, proteins, water, fats, and minerals, DNA is what tells your body how to assemble and maintain all that. You inherit your DNA from your parents. That's why family members often look similar or share certain traits. Genes are segments of DNA that act like instructions for making proteins, which do most of the work in your body. Each gene influences a trait like eye color, height, or even susceptibility to certain diseases. There's also the phenotype, how those genes are expressed, what you see, like curly hair. Another important thing is the genome, which includes all genes, and the epigenome, which turns genes on and off. This is what allows us to survive as a species, adaptation and adjustments. This is the natural way. And today I want to explore the critical windows of growth for proper facial and skeletal development, the very framework of our being. Why does this matter? Because understanding these periods and the powerful natural factors that influence them will help you understand the potential for optimal development, robust health, and lifelong well-being. From the delicate formation at the womb to the dramatic transformations of puberty and the maintenance required through adulthood, nature has orchestrated a complex symphony of growth. Most of this is predetermined, but the other responds dynamically to its environment, particularly to the nourishment we receive and the way we use our bodies. We'll delve into the science, uncovering how specific growth periods build strong bones and guide facial structure, how functional habits like nasal breathing and proper chewing act as nature's architects, and what happens when development goes astray due to deficiencies and poor lifestyle choices, leading to issues like underdeveloped jaws, crowded teeth, breathing problems, and weakened bones. This isn't just about aesthetics. It's about function, health, and understanding our natural design. This is an exploration intended to give you knowledge. So, let's begin at the very beginning. A story that begins not in the mirror, but in the womb, where the foundations are first laid. The prenatal blueprint, the foundation of the face and bones. 9 months, that's all it takes to set the stage for a lifetime. Conception. A single cell divides, multiplies, differentiates. Within weeks, the first hints of the face and skeleton emerge from intricate folds of embryonic tissue. This prenatal period is arguably the most critical and sensitive phase for structural development. Around the 4th week of gestation, specialized cells called the neural crest cells begin a remarkable migration. They are the master builders of the face, contributing to bone, cartilage, nerves, and connective tissue. Simultaneously, the pharyngeal arches, structures reminiscent of gills in our evolutionary ancestors, form and remodel, giving rise to the jaw, palate, ears, and neck structures. Neural crest cells are extremely sensitive to nutrition and toxins. Even mild nutrient deficiencies or exposure to harmful chemicals or endocrine disruptors during this window can have lifelong effects on facial symmetry and brain development. The skull itself forms through 2 main processes. The flat bones of the cranial vault develop directly from mesenchymal tissue intramembranous ossification. The base of the skull and the facial bones often form first as cartilage models, which are then gradually replaced by bone endochondral ossification. At birth, the bones aren't fully fused, leaving soft spots or fontanelles, allowing for passage through the birth canal and rapid brain growth. But this process is profoundly dependent on the maternal environment. What the mother consumes, her health status, and even her stress levels directly impact the developing fetus. You are, quite literally, built from your mother's food. During pregnancy, the quality of nutrients a mother consumes shapes the baby's skeletal development, especially the face and skull. Let's talk specifics. Folate, vitamin B9, is crucial in the very early weeks, essential for neural tube closure and preventing defects like cleft lip and palate. Deficiency can disrupt the fundamental patterning of the face. Vitamin D, often called the sunshine vitamin, is essential for calcium absorption. Without adequate vitamin D, the body cannot effectively utilize calcium to build strong bones and teeth. Maternal deficiency is linked to reduced bone mineral density in newborns and potential skeletal issues later. Calcium and phosphorus are the primary mineral components of the bone, forming the hard hydroxyapatite crystals that provide rigidity. But they need chaperones. Magnesium plays a role in bone cell activity and converting vitamin D to its active form. And then there's the often overlooked vitamin K2. Not the same as K1 found in leafy greens, K2 found in fermented foods like certain cheeses, grass-fed butter, and egg yolks activates key proteins. Osteocalcin, which directs calcium into bones and teeth, and MGP, which helps prevent calcium from depositing in soft tissues like arteries. Prenatal K2 status could influence the baby's bone density and even craniofacial development. Protein provides the amino acids necessary for building the collagen matrix, the flexible scaffolding upon which minerals are deposited. Zinc is crucial for cell division and the function of enzymes involved in bone metabolism. Abundant in eggs and liver, is vital for cell membrane structure and neurotransmission, impacting overall development. Traditional cultures intuitively knew this. Pregnant women were fed sacred foods, fish eggs, liver, raw milk, and bone marrow. Today we replace those with folic acid pills and processed snacks. Studies on prenatal malnutrition, such as during famines, show that children born to undernourished mothers often have smaller jaws, crowded teeth, and altered facial proportions. This is why ancestral diets rich in organ meats, bone broth, and fat-soluble vitamins were so critical. But it's not just what the mother eats, it's also what she's exposed to. Exposure to teratogens, substances like alcohol, nicotine, certain medications, and environmental toxins can cause severe facial and skeletal abnormalities. Fetal alcohol syndrome, for example, has distinct facial characteristics resulting from disrupted development. Underdevelopment or malformation during this stage can manifest as cleft lip and palate, incomplete fusion of facial processes, micrognathia, an undersized lower jaw, craniosynostosis, premature fusion of skull statures, restricting brain growth, and affecting head shape and skeletal dysplasias. A range of genetic disorders affecting bone and cartilage growth. A well-nourished, low-stress pregnancy provides the optimal environment for the fetal blueprint to unfold correctly, laying the foundation for strong bones and a well-proportioned face.
Today, we had the opportunity for me to look at two placentas side by side, one being a vegetarian placenta and the other one being a mom that was very nutrient dense with the foods that she was eating with an animal-based diet. I cannot believe the difference in the quality of the placenta, and not just the quality of the placenta, but in turn the nutrition of what the baby was growing in and what the baby received throughout the whole pregnancy. This one right here was from a mom that was primarily vegetarian throughout her pregnancy. Towards the end of her pregnancy, I was able to get her on liver pills just because her iron had dropped so significantly. And this is the placenta of a mom who was animal-based throughout her pregnancy. So she had lots of red meat, lots of pasteurized eggs, lots of raw milk. And the difference between the two, I mean, it's just obvious. There is such a huge substantial difference in the quality and the consistency of these placentas. Over here, this is called calcification. If you feel it, it's hard. There's a little bit of like a sand-like, rock-like consistency, and this is throughout the whole entire placenta. This is not what we would want to see in pregnancy. In my almost 19 years of doing births, I've never had a side-by-side comparison, and it's mind-blowing to me. It's really sad that this is the start of a baby's life. This is the start of their nutrition. This is what fed them. This is what housed them. And they, you know, it's mind-blowing to see the comparison.
I've had midwives and doulas tell me that when they see the placenta, which is attached to the umbilical cord of vegans, they look a lot like a smoker's placenta. And we know that the health of these critical connections, this tether between baby and mother, are intimately tied to the amount of animal products in the diet. We see it over and over illustrated.
If we have somebody that's eating animal-based, if we had somebody that's eating grass-fed, grass-finished meats on a regular basis, if we have somebody that's eating pasteurized eggs and raw dairy, then what we're gonna see is all of these vitamins, this retinol, this copper, that's all being pushed through the placenta and helping this baby sustain life.
If you're an adult and want to starve yourself, that's fine, but don't do that to your child. It's really sad to see what these vegans are doing to their children. Here's a mind-bending fact. When your mother was a fetus in your grandmother's womb, her ovaries were already forming, which means your first genetic environment was your grandmother's body. Epigenetics show us that nutrition and stress don't just affect one generation. They echo down the line. Weak bones, crooked teeth, smaller airways can all begin with one poor diet generations ago. In the 1930s, a dentist named Weston A. Price traveled the globe. He studied tribal cultures untouched by modern food. And what he found was striking. Wide faces, perfect teeth, strong jaws, and no braces. All groups studied who maintained their traditional diets had excellent facial development. An important thing you need to understand is that he didn't study just one community, but multiple. Also, the results were visible within just one generation. Let's move to the next stage, infancy and early childhood. After birth, the foundation has been laid, but now the bones must grow. And this next phase will determine just how strong, symmetrical, and functional the human body can be. From toddler to teen, the story continues. The very first decision, bottle or breast milk, can have ripple effects that can be seen in the mirror. Breastfeeding is not mere nutrition and can be considered as a natural orthopedic appliance for the harmonious development of face. It plays a crucial role in the entire craniofacial complex. Breastfeeding encourages proper tongue posture, palate expansion, and nasal breathing. Formula and bottle feeding often result in mouth breathing, tongue thrust, and underdeveloped facial muscles. Suckling builds facial muscles that later support jaw alignment and airway size. Breastfeeding for at least 1 year is associated with lower risk of malocclusion. I'm not saying breastfed children will be more attractive than bottle-fed. I've seen people who were bottle-fed and ended up still having good development and vice versa. This could also be due to the nipple shape of the bottle, which can make the tongue thrust forward, leading to a narrow palate, mouth breathing. Bottle feeding, while nutritionally adequate, often involves different mechanics. Some bottle nipples may not encourage the same broad tongue action or muscle recruitment. This isn't about blame, but understanding the functional difference. Paced bottle feeding and choosing nipple shapes that encourage better oral function can be beneficial. Research shows breastfed infants have a 15% wider dental arch by age 5, and bottle-fed infants have a higher risk of sleep apnea. The face grows vertically and forward. The cranial vault expands rapidly during this period to accommodate brain growth. The midface, especially the maxilla, begins its forward and lateral development. The mandible grows lengthwise and downward, creating space for teeth. The nasal cavity enlarges, the sinuses expand. The first foods, how texture shapes bones. The ancestral weaning foods were raw liver, bone broth, cod liver oil, chewy meats, and bone marrow. Think about the modern child's weaning food. The modern blunder pouches and purees, mashed vegetables, cereals, and chicken nuggets, no chewing leading to a weak mandibular development. Modern orthodontists are now admitting many crowded teeth are environmental. They're the consequence of soft diets, pacifiers, and bottle nipples. The physical act of chewing tougher foods, especially when you're young, is one of the most powerful drivers of facial bone growth. The masseter and temporalis muscle exert pressure on the skull bones. This pressure stimulates bone growth through a process called mechanotransduction. Today, the kids are being fed ultra-processed, soft foods from pouches and boxes with no micronutrients. A 1986 Japanese study showed that children fed tougher foods developed wider jaws and more symmetrical faces compared to children on processed diets. Swallowing patterns also play a role. A mature swallow involves the tongue bracing against the palate. An immature pattern, or tongue thrust, where tongue pushes forward against the teeth during swallowing, can exert forces that push teeth out of alignment, contributing to an open bite. Prolonged or intense non-nutritive sucking habits like thumb sucking or extensive pacifier use beyond age 2, 3 can also distort the shape of the jaws and the alignment of teeth, often leading to an open bite or crossbite. Nutritionally, the demands remain high. The nutrients required at this stage are vitamin A, retinol, from liver, not beta-carotene, builds the face, prevents dental crowding, and supports immune system. Vitamin D supports calcium metabolism and skeletal growth. Vitamin K2 directs calcium into bones, especially the skull and jaw. Zinc and magnesium, crucial for enzyme function, bone development, and immune resilience. Calcium and phosphorus. Foundation minerals for hard tissue development. Collagen and glycine from broths, tendons, and skins. They're critical for connective tissue and cartilage. You'll realize these nutrients are the same ones required for the different periods. The perfect ancestral foods for these nutrients are organ meats, raw dairy, and egg yolks. Deficiencies during this period can lead to rickets, softening, and weakening of bones due to severe vitamin D deficiency. This is less common now due to fortification, but subclinical deficiency is widespread. Delayed tooth eruption or enamel defects affecting the primary teeth. Poor bone density setting, a lower baseline for skeletal health, and increased susceptibility to malocclusion as functional issues compound potential nutritional shortfalls. Another hidden destroyer at this stage is mouth breathing. It's silent, it's invisible, and it's one of the most damaging habits a child can develop. Mouth breathing leads to a narrow face and recessed jaw, high palate, poor posture, and neck strain, and even behavioral issues from poor sleep oxygenation. Nose breathing, on the other hand, filters air, warms it, humidifies it, delivers nitric oxide, and promotes proper tongue posture. Conversely, chronic mouth breathing, often due to allergies, enlarged tonsils, or habit, forces the tongue to drop low in the mouth to allow air passage. Without tongue support, the palate may develop high and narrow. The cheeks exert inward pressure unopposed, and facial growth tends to be more vertical than forward. This can lead to a cascade of issues. Lifestyle factors like physical activity are also important. Time spent outdoors facilitates vitamin D synthesis. Posture begins to play a role. A habitually slumped posture can influence head and neck alignment, potentially affecting jaw position over time. This childhood period is truly about establishing functional foundations. Correct breathing, chewing, and swallowing patterns, supported by excellent nutrition, are nature's way of guiding optimal facial and skeletal form. By the time a child reaches 6 years old, their face has already undergone about 60% of its total lifetime growth. The question is, did that growth occur properly or not? This takes us to the next stage. Pre-puberty, the setup before the surge. Just before the hormonal storm of puberty, the body prepares quietly. This is when structure solidifies, posture sets in, and deficiencies begin to show. From ages 6, 12, the face continues growing vertically and forward. This phase is marked by a major dental transition, the loss of baby teeth, and the eruption of their permanent successors, except wisdom teeth. The space available for these larger permanent teeth is largely determined by the growth that occurred in early childhood. This is often when crowding or misalignment becomes apparent if the jaws haven't developed sufficiently. Did the child establish nasal breathing? Did they chew a varied, textured diet? The results of those early functional inputs become visible now. If the palate is wide and the jaws grew forward adequately, there's a better chance the permanent teeth will erupt into good alignment. If mouth breathing persisted, or the diet was predominantly soft, crowding is more likely. This is also the age when orthodontic assessments often begin, looking for issues like crowding, cross bites, deep bites, and open bites. While conventional orthodontics can straighten teeth, a natural way perspective emphasizes understanding and addressing the underlying causes related to jaw development and oral function, ideally earlier on. Sometimes interventions focused on myofunctional therapy, exercise for tongue and facial muscles, airway assessment, and possibly palatal expansion can help guide growth more favorable, even at this stage. This is also the reason why I think mewing is overrated. It helps during these earlier stages, not when you're grown. Mewing isn't magic, but correct tongue posture, nose breathing, and chewing can subtly direct bone growth if practiced consistently before growth plates close. Nutrition needs to continue to support steady growth and mineralization of the erupting permanent teeth. Ensuring adequate intake of bone-building nutrients remains crucial. This is also a time when unhealthy eating habits creep in. Sugary drinks, processed snacks, which not only lack essential nutrients, but can also contribute to dental caries and inflammation. By age 7, 9, the palate either finishes wide or collapses inward. Without a properly positioned tongue and frequent chewing, the face begins to fall inward. The palate should be U-shaped, not V-shaped. Some signs of poor development at this stage include gummy smile, overbite or underbite, small airway, and chronic allergies or sinus issues. This is when it's not just about looks, it's about function. A narrow airway affects breathing. Poor posture affects the spine. Beauty, strength, and health are intertwined. Lifestyle continues to play a vital role. Regular physical activity and getting sun exposure contributes to bone density. Posture becomes increasingly important. Children need to run, jump, climb, and fall. These impacts trigger osteogenesis, the process that strengthens bones. Spending hours hunched over desks or devices can reinforce forward head posture, which can strain neck muscles and subtly influence jaw position and function over the long term. Environmental toxins and excess fluoride can cause dental fluorosis and brittle bones. Endocrine disruptors can delay or accelerate puberty, skewing growth. Then comes the surge: testosterone, estrogen, growth hormone. The body explodes into its adult form. The pubertal window, the final growth surge. Puberty is the final major growth window, the last great surge of bone growth, muscle growth, and hormone-driven transformations. This is the last chance to optimize bone structure. Testosterone, estrogen, and growth hormone drive mandibular growth, brow ridge development, and sinus expansion. This is why some people might go through childhood being normies or soft-looking soy boys, but then transform into more masculine chads or chadlites. This period brings the most dramatic growth spurt since infancy. This is when you start becoming a man. This is also when the coping starts, and scammers start selling you false hopes and copium. Don't buy it. The sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone, play a direct role is skeletal growth. They stimulate chondrocytes in the growth plates of long bones, leading to increased height. They also influence bone maturation and the eventual fusion of these growth plates, signaling the end of major height increase. The face doesn't just get bigger, it changes shape. Long bones grow in length at the epiphyseal plates. Testosterone and growth hormone trigger the widening of the mandible, brow ridges, and cheekbones. The shoulders broaden, the ribcage expands, the pelvic shapes itself. The cartilage in the nose and ears continues growing, and the face becomes more angular, defined, and masculine. In boys, graceful yet robust in girls. This will happen only if your nutrient status and hormonal health are optimal. If you're a guy, you don't want to go through puberty being low T. This rapid construction demands a huge supply of building materials. Calories soar, but nutrient density is paramount. This is the critical window for achieving peak bone mass, the maximum amount of bone density a person will attain in their lifetime, usually reached in the late teens or early 20s. Building a high peak bone mass is like making a large deposit into your bone bank, protecting against osteoporosis later in life. The key nutrients are in high demand. I'll make a sole video focusing on the best foods to boost your testosterone. Understand that at this stage you need proteins, minerals, cholesterol, and saturated fats. But modern diets high in seed oils, refined sugar, and low-fat processed foods suppress these hormones. You want to stay away from endocrine disruptors. Unfortunately, adolescence is also a time when dietary habits can suffer. Increased independence, peer pressure, fast food consumption, and sometimes restrictive dieting or eating disorders can severely compromise nutrient intake during this critical building phase. Falling short on calcium and other key nutrients now can permanently lower achievable peak bone mass, increasing future fracture risk. Also, at this time, I see a lot of young guys getting health advice from bodybuilders on enhancements. You should be really careful where you get your information from. Lifestyle factors remain critical. Adequate sleep is essential, as growth hormone is primarily released during deep sleep. Managing stress is also very important, as chronic stress can negatively impact hormonal balance and nutrient absorption. This is the most common age for orthodontic intervention. If you need orthodontic intervention at this age, you should definitely get it. Alongside orthodontic treatment, also consider functional habits. Once the growth plates fuse, natural height increase stops. Major changes will require surgery, but small improvements can still be made. If you miss any of these critical windows, you'll be playing catch-up for life. Puberty is the final window to express your genetic potential. You either seize this window or you miss it forever. This takes us to adulthood and aging maintenance and maturation. By the early 20s, major facial and skeletal growth is largely complete. The focus shifts from construction to maintenance and managing the slow, inevitable changes associated with aging. Bone is not inert. It's a dynamic tissue constantly undergoing remodeling. Old bone is broken down and new bone is formed. In young adulthood, these processes are roughly balanced. Peak bone mass is achieved, and the goal becomes preserving it. Maintaining adequate intake of calcium, vitamin D, K2, magnesium, and protein remains essential for supporting healthy bone remodeling. Lifestyle factors that affect bone loss include smoking, excessive alcohol intake, sedentary lifestyle, poor nutrition, and certain medications. While the underlying bone structure changes little in healthy adults, the overlying soft tissues do change with age. However, significant bone changes can occur due to tooth loss. When a tooth is lost, the jawbone in that area is no longer stimulated by chewing forces and begins to resorb or shrink. Widespread tooth loss can lead to noticeable changes in facial height and structure, contributing to collapsed appearance. Nasal breathing, proper tongue posture, and lip seal remain important throughout life for maintaining optimal function, supporting airway health, and potentially mitigating some age-related changes in facial tone. Your face is more than just a reflection. It's a story of your ancestors' genetics, how you grew, what you ate, how you breathed, and how you lived. This knowledge encourages you to work with our natural design, not against it, to nourish our bodies properly, to use them as intended, and to appreciate the intricate processes that shape who we are. Weston A. Price warned us. He showed us the faces of health and the faces of decline. He wasn't just documenting teeth, he was documenting civilization's collapse. You were built by nature and shaped by food. Effects start becoming visible within just one generation, and you hold the power to shape the next generation. With natural selection and proper knowledge, we can grow a generation of stronger, healthier, and more beautiful humans. Because beauty is built on biology, and biology is shaped by the natural way. Thanks for watching.